Max, a rescue dog with a difficult past, finds a second chance at life with the Miller family. Chloe and Ben Miller adopt Max for their daughter Ellie, a foster child adjusting to her new home. Max's protective instincts quickly reveal his unique abilities, sensing danger and acting as Ellie's guardian. During a devastating storm, Max saves the family from a gas leak and leads them to safety when their home is flooded. Despite the destruction of their house, the Millers come together with their community to rebuild. Along the way, Max becomes a local hero, inspiring others to adopt rescue animals and appreciate the unbreakable bonds between humans and pets. This story is a powerful reminder of resilience, the importance of second chances, and the incredible loyalty animals offer when given love and trust. Max isn't just a dog, he's a protector, a healer, and a member of the family. Where are you watching from? Let us know in the comments below. If you loved this story, please like, comment, and subscribe to DG Story. Don't forget to hit the notification bell so you never miss another heartwarming tale. Thank you for being part of our community. The warm, late spring breeze swept through the quiet suburban neighborhood in Colorado as Chloe Miller stood on the porch, gazing at the sky. It had been 2 weeks since Ellie, their newly adopted 5-year-old daughter, had moved in with her and Ben. The transition had been both a joy and a challenge. Chloe and Ben had been trying to start a family for years. After countless doctor visits and difficult conversations, they decided adoption was their path forward. When Ellie's profile came across their desk, Chloe instantly felt a connection. The little girl, with her shy smile and big brown eyes, had been in foster care for most of her young life. Now, Ellie was home, but adjusting to a new family was overwhelming for her. She was polite and well-behaved but withdrawn, as if afraid to trust this new stability. It was during one of those quiet mornings, as Ellie played silently in her room, that Chloe decided to visit the local animal shelter. She had read articles about how pets could help children cope with stress and build confidence. Ben was hesitant. "Ellie's still settling in," he said over breakfast. "A dog might be too much right now." But Chloe had always been the intuitive one. She felt that the right dog could bring Ellie out of her shell. "Let's just look," she insisted. At the shelter, the sound of barking and the occasional meow filled the air. Rows of kennels lined the walls, and Chloe scanned each one, her heart breaking at the sight of so many animals in need. Then, she saw him. In the last kennel, a large German Shepherd mix sat quietly, his amber eyes watching her. Unlike the other dogs, he didn't bark or wag his tail. He simply stared, as if assessing her intentions. "That's Max," the shelter worker said, peering beside her. "He's a bit of a mystery. Came in about 6 months ago. No chip, no tags. Seems well-trained, but he's reserved." Chloe knelt by the kennel, reaching out her hand. Max didn't move at first but eventually stepped closer, sniffing her fingers before resting his head against the bars. Despite Ben's reservations, Chloe brought Max home that afternoon. Ellie was cautiously curious, standing behind Chloe as Max explored the living room. "Is he ours now?" Ellie asked softly. "Yes," Chloe said, smiling. "His name is Max. What do you think?" Ellie didn't respond, but that night, Chloe caught her sitting near Max's bed, watching as he dozed. Max opened one eye, glanced at Ellie, and wagged his tail just once. In the weeks that followed, Max settled into the family. He was calm and obedient but maintained a certain distance, especially from Ellie. The little girl, ever patient, would bring him treats and sit nearby as he ate. But Max never sought her out. Chloe began to worry. Was Max the wrong choice? But one evening, she found Ellie asleep on the couch, her hand resting on Max's fur as he lay beside her. It was a small moment, but it gave Chloe hope. Unbeknownst to the Millers, Max's story was far more complicated than they could have imagined. His quiet demeanor hid scars, both physical and emotional, that would soon reveal themselves in ways no one could predict. Ellie's adjustment to her new home was gradual. She was a child of few words. Her small frame and hesitant demeanor a reminder of the years she'd spent moving from one foster home to another. Chloe tried her best to make Ellie feel comfortable, decorating her room with bright colors and filling the bookshelves with stories she thought Ellie might enjoy. "Do you like this one?" Chloe asked one evening, holding up a storybook about a princess and her magical animal friends. Ellie nodded but didn't take the book from Chloe's hand. Instead, she looked out the window, where Max was lying in the backyard. "Why doesn't Max play?" Ellie finally asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Chloe paused, unsure how to answer. "Maybe he's still getting used to us, just like you," she said gently. "But he's a good dog. He'll come around." Max's behavior was peculiar. While he seemed calm and obedient, he had moments of intense focus, especially around Ellie. If she moved to another room, Max would quietly follow, sitting near the doorway as if standing guard. One night, Chloe woke to the sound of Max's low growl. She found him sitting outside Ellie's bedroom door, staring at the hallway with ears perked and muscles tense. "Max?" she whispered, stepping closer. Max glanced at her briefly before returning his gaze to the hallway. The next morning, Chloe told Ben about the incident. "It's like he's watching over her," she said. "Or he's just being territorial." Ben replied, sipping his coffee. "Dogs do that sometimes." Chloe wasn't convinced. There was something purposeful in Max's actions, something she couldn't quite put her finger on. One evening, as Ellie sat in the backyard, Chloe watched from the kitchen window. Ellie had a piece of chalk in her hand, drawing on the pavement stones. Max sat a few feet away, his eyes never leaving her. "Why do you think she likes him so much?" Ben asked, coming up behind Chloe. "Because he's the first thing she doesn't have to say goodbye to," Chloe replied softly. Just then, Ellie dropped her chalk, and it rolled toward Max. For the first time, Max stood, walked over, and nudged the chalk back toward Ellie with his nose. Ellie giggled, a rare, heartwarming sound. Chloe turned to Ben with a knowing smile. "I told you he was the right choice." That night, as Chloe tucked Ellie into bed, the little girl reached out to hold her hand. "Mommy," she said softly, using the word for the first time since coming to live with them. Chloe's eyes filled with tears. "Yes, sweetheart. Max is my best friend." From that moment, Chloe knew that Max wasn't just a pet. He was a part of their family, a bridge for Ellie to find trust and love again. The Miller household began to settle into a peaceful routine. Ellie's bond with Max grew stronger each day, and the once shy girl started showing more confidence. Chloe was thrilled to see Ellie smiling more often, especially when playing with Max. However, Max's peculiar behavior continued to catch Chloe's attention. It started subtly. Max would position himself near Ellie's bed every night, his ears twitching at the slightest sound. On some nights, Chloe or Ben would wake to hear Max pacing the hallway, his claws clicking softly against the wooden floor. "He's just protective," Ben said when Chloe brought it up one morning. It's not unusual for dogs to get attached to one person in the family, but Chloe couldn't shake the feeling that Max's behavior wasn't just about attachment. His pacing and occasional growls seemed too deliberate, as if he were guarding Ellie from something unseen. One night, Chloe decided to stay awake and observe Max. At exactly 2:30 a.m., Max stood up from his spot by Ellie's bed and moved to the doorway, his body tense. He stared down the hallway, growling softly but never barking. Chloe followed his gaze but saw nothing. "Max," she whispered. "What's wrong?" Max turned his head briefly to look at her, then returned his focus to the empty hallway. Around the same time, Ellie began showing signs of fatigue. She complained of headaches and sometimes seemed unusually tired, even after a full night's sleep. Chloe assumed it was the stress of adjusting to her new home. But as the days passed, the symptoms didn't improve. Ben was less concerned. "Kids get tired, especially after big changes," he said dismissively. "She just needs time." But Chloe's intuition told her otherwise. She scheduled a doctor's appointment for Ellie, but the results were inconclusive. The doctor suggested keeping an eye on her and ensuring she stayed hydrated and well-rested. Max's behavior grew more intense as Ellie's health seemed to decline. He became more restless, often nudging Ellie to wake her up when she napped too long. At first, Chloe thought it was sweet, but as Max's insistence grew, she started to worry, determined to understand Max better. Chloe decided to visit the shelter where she had adopted him. She hoped to find out more about his past or any training he might have had that could explain his behavior. The shelter worker recognized Max immediately. "He was one of the smartest dogs we've ever had," she said. "Very alert, very intuitive, but he came in with some scars, both physical and emotional. We never found out what happened to him before he was abandoned." The worker paused, then added, "We did notice something unusual, though. Max seems to have a sixth sense about danger. A few times during his stay here, he alerted us to things we would have missed otherwise, like a gas leak in one of the kennels. He saved lives here." Chloe felt a chill run down her spine. Max's vigilance wasn't just loyalty, it was something deeper. Chloe left the shelter with a heavy heart, the worker's words echoing in her mind. Max seems to have a sixth sense about danger. She couldn't help but connect it to his nightly pacing and his persistent focus on Ellie. What danger could he be sensing? Over the next few nights, Max's behavior became even more pronounced. He began growling louder and pacing more frequently, especially near Ellie's room. On one occasion, he even scratched at the door, waking Ellie and Chloe in the process. Ellie, groggy but calm, sat up in bed. "What's wrong, Max?" she asked, rubbing her eyes. Max barked once, low and sharp, then moved to the window, his tail stiff. Chloe followed, peering outside, but there was nothing unusual in the quiet neighborhood. Then, frustrated by the disturbances, confronted Chloe. "This is getting ridiculous," he said. "We need to train him or figure out what's wrong. He's waking everyone up." But Chloe was torn. Deep down, she felt that Max's actions weren't random. "He's trying to tell us something," she insisted. "I don't know what it is yet, but we need to trust him." During the day, Ellie's health took another concerning turn. She began experiencing sudden dizzy spells, and her once bright energy faded into lethargy. Chloe tried to hide her growing worry, but one afternoon, Ellie collapsed in the living room while playing with Max. "Ellie!" Chloe shouted, rushing to her side. Max was already there, nosing Ellie gently and letting out a soft whine. Then, alarmed, helped Chloe lift Ellie onto the couch. "That's it," he said firmly. "We're taking her to the hospital." The emergency room visit ruled out any immediate threats, but the doctors recommended further tests. It could be environmental. One doctor suggested, sometimes undetected factors in a home can cause symptoms like these: mold, chemicals, even carbon monoxide. The mention of environmental dangers struck a chord with Chloe. She remembered Max's peculiar focus on Ellie's room and his history at the shelter. Was there something wrong with their house? That evening, Chloe and Ben sat in the kitchen, discussing the situation. Max lay at their feet, his head resting on his paws but his eyes alert. "We need to do a thorough inspection of the house," Chloe said. "The doctors mentioned mold or gas leaks. It's worth checking." Ben sighed, rubbing his temples. "I'll call someone tomorrow." "But Chloe, we're grasping at straws here. Maybe Ellie's symptoms are just stress or a virus. Max's behavior might not even be related." Chloe didn't respond. Instead, she reached down to pet Max, who looked up at her with his steady, knowing eyes. She couldn't explain it, but she trusted him. The next day, an inspector arrived to evaluate the house. He found nothing alarming in the main areas, but when he reached Ellie's room, Max began barking furiously, circling the inspector and the floor beneath Ellie's bed. "Is this normal for him?" the inspector asked, startled. Chloe shook her head. "Not at all." The inspector crouched down, examining the floorboards. After a moment, He frowned. "There's moisture here," he said. "Could be a sign of hidden mold or rot. We'll need to pull up the boards to see what's underneath." As he worked, Max sat nearby, watching intently. When the floorboards were removed, the inspector's face turned grim. "You've got a serious problem," he said. The inspector's words sent a chill through Chloe. Beneath the floorboards in Ellie's room, the damage was far worse than she had anticipated. The wood was damp, discolored, and crumbling in places. "This moisture has been here for a while," the inspector explained, shining his flashlight on the rotted beams. "If left untreated, could cause serious health issues, especially for someone sensitive. Like your daughter." Chloe's mind raced. Could this hidden danger be the source of Ellie's symptoms? Was this what Max had been sensing all along? As the inspector continued his work, Max became more agitated. He barked sharply and scratched at the floorboards, as if trying to uncover something deeper. Chloe had never seen him act so frantically. "Max, stop," Ben called, pulling the dog back. But Max resisted, his growls low and insistent. The inspector paused and glanced at Max. "It's almost like he knows there's more to find," he said, half joking. Chloe crouched beside Max, placing a calming hand on his back. "What is it, boy?" she whispered. "What are you trying to tell us?" Max's gaze remained fixed on a specific corner of the room. Following Max's lead, the inspector shifted his focus to the corner. He tapped the walls, listening for hollow spots, and then knelt to check for additional damage. His face grew serious. "There's a gas pipe running through this wall," he said. "If there's a leak, it could explain your daughter's symptoms, and it would be extremely dangerous." Ben, now fully alarmed, stepped forward. "How dangerous?" "Gas leaks can cause dizziness, headaches, fatigue," the inspector replied. "If it's been leaking slowly, the symptoms might build up over time. But if the leak worsens or something ignites it..." He didn't need to finish. Without hesitation, the inspector called for a gas specialist to confirm the situation. In the meantime, he advised the Millers to vacate the house temporarily. Chloe, Ben, and Ellie packed a few essentials and moved into a nearby motel for the night, bringing Max with them. Despite the temporary relief of being out of the house, Chloe's nerves were on edge. "What if we hadn't adopted Max?" she asked Ben as they sat in the motel room. "What if we hadn't listened to him?" Ben exhaled slowly. "I don't even want to think about it." He reached down to pet Max, who was lying at his feet. "You saved us, buddy. You really did." Ellie, sitting on the bed with her favorite stuffed animal, chimed in softly. "Max is my hero." The following morning, the gas specialist confirmed the worst. There was indeed a leak, and it had been building up over time. The inspector's early intervention, guided by Max's instincts, had likely prevented a catastrophic disaster. As the danger subsided, Chloe couldn't stop thinking about Max's past. His behavior wasn't just loyalty, it was a level of awareness that seemed almost human. She decided to dig deeper into his history, returning to the shelter to ask more questions. This time, she learned something that made everything click into place. Chloe arrived at the shelter early the next morning, determined to uncover the truth about Max's past. The shelter worker, an older man named Dave, greeted her warmly. "Back again? Max giving you trouble?" he joked. Chloe shook her head. "No, he's been incredible, but I need to know more about him. There's something different about him." Dave leaned back in his chair, rubbing his chin thoughtfully. "Max came to us about 6 months ago," he began. "We don't know much about where he came from, but he was dropped off by a man who claimed he couldn't handle him anymore. Said Max was too intense." Chloe frowned. "Too intense? What does that mean?" Dave continued. "At first, we thought he might be aggressive, but he wasn't. Max is calm, smart, and, well, almost too aware. He seems to sense danger before it happens. Saved a few other dogs here when a gas leak happened in one of the kennels. That's when we realized he wasn't an ordinary dog." Dave paused, then added, After some digging, we found out Max used to be a service dog. He was trained for search and rescue, specializing in detecting dangers like gas leaks and structural instability. But something happened during a mission, something that made his handler give him up. Chloe's heart sank as Dave described Max's history. During a search and rescue operation in a collapsed building, Max had worked tirelessly to locate survivors. However, one of the people he found, a young boy, didn't survive the injuries he had sustained. Max's handler blamed him for the boy's death. Dave said quietly, "Of course, it wasn't Max's fault." But the handler couldn't see past the loss. He abandoned Max, saying he'd failed. Chloe's eyes filled with tears. Max hadn't just been a rescue dog. He had carried the weight of a failure that wasn't his. Now, in her home, he had found a new purpose, one that gave him a second chance to protect and serve. When Chloe returned to the motel and shared what she had learned with Ben, his reaction was one of disbelief and admiration. So Max wasn't just a dog. He was a hero all along. Chloe nodded. "And now he's our hero." Ellie, sitting on the floor with Max, hugged him tightly. "You're the best dog in the whole world," she whispered. Max licked her cheek, his tail wagging gently. The gas leak was repaired, and the Millers returned home, taking precautions to ensure their house was safe for Ellie and Max. The experience left them shaken but grateful, especially for Max's instincts, which had saved their lives. As the family settled back into their routine, Chloe and Ben realized just how lucky they were to have Max. He wasn't just a pet, he was a guardian, a protector, and a member of their family. But they also knew that Max's story wasn't over. His journey from abandonment to heroism was just beginning. Life at the Miller household slowly returned to normal after the gas leak scare. Ellie's health improved dramatically, and her laughter once again filled the home. Max, however, remained ever vigilant, though the family appreciated his protectiveness. Chloe couldn't ignore the feeling that Max still sensed something unresolved. The arrival of a summer thunderstorm brought an eerie tension to the house. Heavy rain battered the windows, and the wind howled through the trees. Ellie, though normally brave, clung to Chloe as the storm intensified. "It's just a storm, sweetheart," Chloe reassured her, stroking her hair. Max, however, wasn't as calm. He paced the living room, occasionally stopping to sniff the air. His low growls became more frequent as the evening wore on. Ben, trying to lighten the mood, joked, "Maybe he's just nervous about the thunder." But Chloe knew better. She watched Max closely, noting his heightened alertness and the way his focus repeatedly returned to Ellie's room. Around midnight, a loud crash echoed through the house. The lights flickered and went out, plunging the family into darkness. Ben grabbed a flashlight and began checking the circuit breaker, while Chloe stayed with Ellie in the living room. Max's behavior escalated. He barked sharply, running between the living room and the hallway that led to Ellie's bedroom. When Chloe tried to calm him, he nipped at her sleeve and pulled her toward the hallway. "Ben," Chloe called, panic rising in her voice. "Something's wrong." Chloe followed Max down the hallway, her heart pounding. Max stopped abruptly outside Ellie's room. Growling fiercely, Chloe swung the flashlight beam toward the floor and gasped. Water was seeping in through the baseboards, pooling rapidly on the hardwood floor. "Ben!" she yelled again. Ben arrived moments later, his flashlight revealing the extent of the flooding. "The storm must have overwhelmed the drainage," he said, his voice tight with concern. "We need to get Ellie out of here." As Chloe turned to grab Ellie, Max suddenly lunged toward the corner of the room. Barking furiously, Ben swung his flashlight toward the wall and froze. The corner wall was sagging inward, the wood buckling under the pressure of water that had accumulated outside. "It's going to give way," Ben said, his voice barely above a whisper. With no time to spare, Ben and Chloe scrambled to evacuate the house. Chloe scooped up Ellie while Ben grabbed essential belongings. But Max refused to leave. He stood his ground in Ellie's room, barking at the wall as if warning the family to hurry. "Max, come on," Ben shouted. but the dog didn't budge. At that moment, a deafening crack filled the air, and the wall began to collapse. As the wall began to crumble, Ben lunged forward, grabbing Max by the collar. The dog resisted for a moment, his sharp barks echoing through the room, before finally relenting and allowing Ben to pull him away. They barely made it out of Ellie's room when the wall gave way entirely, water surging into the house like a tidal wave. Chloe, holding Ellie tightly, watched in horror as the water rapidly flooded the hallway. Furniture tipped over, and items floated past as the rising water turned their home into a dangerous trap. "We need to get to higher ground," Ben shouted, his voice strained over the sound of the rushing water. Max led the way, moving swiftly through the chaos. Despite the danger, he stopped frequently to check on Ellie, his protective instincts driving every action. Chloe clutched Ellie tighter, her heart pounding as they followed Max toward the stairs. As they reached the base of the staircase, a large piece of debris, a toppled bookshelf, blocked their path. The water was now waist-deep for Ben and rising quickly. Ellie whimpered in Chloe's arms, her small hands clutching her mother's shirt. "Ben, we have to move," Chloe cried. Ben waded toward the bookshelf, trying to push it aside, but it wouldn't budge. "It's too heavy," he said, panic creeping into his voice. Max, sensing the urgency, leapt onto the bookshelf and began clawing at it with determination. His strong paws dug into the wood, shifting it inch by inch. Chloe and Ben joined in, pushing and pulling with all their strength. Finally, the bookshelf tilted just enough to create a narrow gap. "Go!" Ben shouted, helping Chloe and Ellie squeeze through. As they climbed the stairs, Ellie's grip on Chloe loosened. The little girl, still frightened, wriggled in her mother's arms, trying to look back at Max. "Max!" Ellie cried out, her voice breaking with fear. Before Chloe could tighten her hold, Ellie slipped from her grasp, falling into the water below. "Ellie!" Chloe screamed, reaching for her daughter, but the current pulled the child toward the living room. Max, hearing Ellie's cry, sprang into action. He dove into the water without hesitation, his powerful legs propelling him through the current. Chloe and Ben watched helplessly as Max swam after Ellie. The water surged around him, but his focus never wavered. Ellie clung to a floating cushion, her face pale with terror. Max reached her just as the cushion tipped. With incredible precision, he grabbed the back of her shirt with his teeth and began pulling her toward the stairs. Chloe and Ben reached down, their arms outstretched. "Come on, Max, bring her here." With one final push, Max delivered Ellie into Ben's arms. Chloe sobbed with relief as she hugged her daughter tightly, her heart bursting with gratitude. The Miller family's relief was short-lived as the situation around them continued to deteriorate. Water kept rising, and the storm outside showed no signs of letting up. The walls of the house creaked ominously, and the once sturdy staircase now felt unstable under their feet. "We have to get to the attic," Ben said urgently, holding Ellie close. "It's the highest point in the house." Chloe nodded, her eyes darting to Max, who stood beside her, water dripping from his soaked fur. His intense gaze seemed to say he understood what was at stake. As they ascended the stairs, the sound of rushing water grew louder. The lower floor was now completely submerged, and debris floated dangerously close to the staircase. Ellie clung to Ben, her small arms wrapped around his neck, while Chloe carried a flashlight, illuminating their path. When they reached the top floor, Max rushed ahead, his paws slipping slightly on the wet wood. He sniffed the air and barked sharply, leading them toward the pull-down ladder that led to the attic. Ben reached up and tugged the ladder down. "Ellie, you go first," he said, placing her carefully on the steps. Chloe followed, climbing quickly and reaching out to help pull Ellie into the cramped attic space. The attic was dark and stuffy, but it offered a temporary reprieve from the rising water below. However, it wasn't long before they realized the storm's relentless force wasn't done with them yet. Rain began seeping through the roof, and the sound of cracking wood echoed ominously. Chloe looked around frantically. "We're running out of time," she said. "If the roof gives way," Max barked again, drawing their attention to a small window near the edge of the attic. It was barely large enough for a person to squeeze through, but it offered a glimmer of hope. "We can get onto the roof," Ben exclaimed. As Ben pried open the window, the family could hear the sound of splitting wood beneath them. The house groaned as the pressure of the storm began to overwhelm its structure. "Ellie first," Chloe said, helping her daughter toward the window. Ben climbed through next, holding Ellie securely as they crouched on the slanted roof. The wind whipped around them, rain pelting their faces as they clung to the shingles. Chloe turned back to Max, who was still in the attic. "Come on, boy," she called, but Max hesitated, his ears twitching as he listened to the sounds below. He growled softly, his body tense. Chloe realized he wasn't going to leave until he was sure the family was safe. "Max, please," Chloe begged, reaching out to him. At that moment, a loud crash came from below, and the attic floor began to tilt. Max finally sprang into action, leaping through the window just as the roof buckled behind him. On the roof, the family huddled together, the wind threatening to pull them off the precarious surface. Max positioned himself protectively between Ellie and the edge, his body bracing against the wind. "Hold on," Ben shouted, gripping Chloe and Ellie tightly. The storm roared around them, but Max never wavered. He stood firm, his fur soaked and his muscles taut, as if daring the storm to challenge him. The Miller family clung desperately to the slippery roof, the storm raging around them. Rain poured relentlessly, and gusts of wind threatened to pull them off their precarious perch. Max stayed alert, his body a shield between Ellie and the edge of the roof. A sudden flash of lightning illuminated the chaos around them, revealing a nearby tree that had been uprooted by the storm. The massive trunk creaked as the wind pushed it closer to the house. Chloe gasped, realizing the tree was about to crash onto the roof. "Ben!" she screamed. "The tree!" Ben turned in time to see the enormous shadow looming toward them. "We have to move," he yelled, pulling Ellie toward a more stable section of the roof. Max barked furiously, his sharp warnings cutting through the howling wind. Chloe scrambled to follow, her hands slipping on the wet shingles. The tree gave a final groan before toppling, as the trunk slammed onto the roof. It sent debris flying in every direction. Max leapt forward, using his body to shield Ellie from a falling branch. The impact knocked him to the side, but he quickly regained his footing, growling fiercely at the storm as if defying its wrath. "Max!" Ellie cried, reaching for him, but Chloe held her back. "He's okay," Chloe reassured her, though her voice trembled with fear and gratitude. Amid the chaos, the faint sound of a siren pierced through the storm. Flashing lights appeared in the distance. Rescue teams were approaching. Ben waved frantically, signaling for help. "They see us," he shouted, relief washing over him. A firefighter emerged from the floodwaters below, shouting instructions. "Hold tight. We're sending a ladder," Max barked in response, his tail wagging slightly despite the tension. Chloe couldn't help but smile through her tears. Even in the midst of danger, Max's bravery never faltered. The rescue team worked quickly, extending a ladder to the roof and securing the family one by one. Chloe and Ellie were the first to climb down, followed by Ben. Max, however, hesitated at the edge. "Come on, Max," Chloe called, her voice filled with urgency. Max looked back at the roof, his instincts seemingly telling him to check one last time for danger. Finally, he turned and leapt onto the ladder, descending carefully with the help of a firefighter. As soon as Max reached the ground, Ellie threw her arms around him, burying her face in his wet fur. "You saved us, Max," she whispered. The family was taken to a shelter where they were given dry clothes and hot drinks. Though exhausted, their relief was palpable. The rescue team, having heard about Max's actions, approached the Millers with admiration. "That dog's a hero," one firefighter said. "Without him, this could have ended very differently." Chloe nodded, tears in her eyes. "He's not just a dog. He's family." Max lay beside Ellie, his eyes finally closing as the storm subsided. For the first time that night, he allowed himself to rest, knowing his family was safe. The morning after the storm, the Miller family sat together in a temporary shelter, exhausted but grateful. The chaos of the previous night still lingered in their minds, but the fact that they were safe overshadowed everything else. Max lay at Ellie's feet, his body stretched out, his tail thumping lightly against the floor whenever Ellie reached down to pet him. Ben and Chloe spoke quietly with one of the rescue workers, trying to piece together what had happened. The storm had been one of the worst in years, causing massive flooding and widespread damage throughout the area. Their house, already weakened by the water damage and structural issues, had suffered significant destruction. "It'll take time to rebuild," Ben said, his voice heavy. "But at least we have each other." Chloe nodded, glancing at Ellie and Max. "And we have him," she added, her voice filled with gratitude. The rescue worker smiled. "I heard what he did. You've got a real hero there." Later that day, the family visited their home to assess the damage. The site was devastating. The roof had caved in, and most of the lower floor was submerged in water. Ellie held tightly to Max's collar, her small face somber as she looked at the remains of her room. "Where will we live now?" she asked softly. Chloe knelt beside her, pulling her into a hug. "We'll figure it out," she said. "Home isn't just a building, sweetheart. It's where we're together." Max, as if understanding Ellie's sadness, nudged her gently with his nose. Ellie smiled faintly and wrapped her arms around him. News of Max's heroic actions spread quickly through the town. Neighbors, many of whom had also been affected by the storm, rallied together to support the Millers. Offers of temporary housing, food, and assistance poured in. At a community meeting held to coordinate relief efforts, Chloe was invited to share their story. Standing before a group of friends and strangers, she recounted the night of the storm and how Max had saved their family. "There were moments when I thought we wouldn't make it," she said, her voice trembling. "But Max never gave up. He kept us safe when everything else was falling apart." The audience erupted into applause, and Max, sitting beside Chloe, wagged his tail enthusiastically. Buoyed by the community's support, the Millers began planning their next steps. Rebuilding the house would be a long and expensive process, but with donations and volunteer efforts, they felt hopeful. "We're going to make it better than before," Ben said one evening as he sketched out ideas for their new home. "Stronger, safer, and with plenty of space for Max." Chloe smiled. "He's earned it." Over the following weeks, the Miller family's life revolved around rebuilding, not just their house, but also a sense of stability. With the help of their neighbors and the local community, progress was steady. Max was by their side every step of the way, becoming a familiar sight at the construction site. Max's bravery during the storm had turned him into a local hero. Children from the neighborhood often visited to see him, bringing treats and asking Chloe to retell the story of how he saved Ellie. Even adults, inspired by Max's actions, expressed newfound admiration for the loyalty and instincts of animals. The local newspaper ran a feature titled, "Hero Dog Saves Family During Storm." With a photo of Max proudly sitting next to Ellie, the story touched hearts throughout the town, inspiring conversations about the incredible bonds between humans and their pets. One afternoon, as Max lay under the shade of a tree near the construction site, Ellie sat beside him with a sketch pad. She was drawing a picture of their new home, complete with a special detail, a cozy corner labeled Max's Spot. "This is for you," she told him, holding up the drawing. Max thumped his tail in approval, making Ellie giggle. The Millers weren't the only ones determined to honor Max. The local animal shelter, where Chloe had first found him, decided to organize an adoption drive in his name. They called it the Max Hero Fundraiser, and invited the Millers to attend as special guests. On the day of the event, Chloe and Ben shared their story once again, emphasizing how Max had not only saved their lives but also brought them closer as a family. "Adopting Max was the best decision we ever made," Chloe told the crowd. "He reminded us of the power of love, loyalty, and second chances." The event was a resounding success, with dozens of animals finding new homes. Ellie beamed with pride as she saw other families adopting pets, knowing they too could experience the same joy and companionship Max had brought to her life. By the end of the month, the Millers' new home was nearly complete. The community had helped them design a house that was not only safer but also more functional for their needs. The highlight of the new living room was a sunlit corner specifically designed for Max, complete with a soft bed and his favorite chew toys. On the day they moved in, Ellie led Max through the front door with excitement. "Welcome home, Max," she exclaimed. Max sniffed the air, his tail wagging as he explored the new space. When he reached his corner, he lay down contentedly, letting out a satisfied huff. It was clear he understood this was his home, too. That evening, as the family sat together on the porch, watching the sun set over the mountains, Chloe felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. She looked at Max, who lay peacefully at Ellie's feet, and thought about how far they had come. "Max didn't just save us that night," she said softly. "He gave us a second chance at life, at hope, at everything." Ben nodded, placing an arm around her. "He's more than a dog. He's family." As the weeks turned into months, the Millers settled into their new home, embracing the fresh start it represented. Though the scars of the storm remained, a tree stump in the yard where the old oak had fallen, photos of their flooded house, they chose to see these as reminders of resilience and gratitude. Ellie's relationship with Max deepened with each passing day. Wherever Ellie went, Max was close behind, his protective instincts as sharp as ever. He became her confidant, playmate, and guardian. One afternoon, Chloe watched as Ellie attempted to teach Max a new trick. She held a small treat above his head, instructing him to spin in a circle. Max tilted his head, as if considering the request, then promptly sat down instead. Ellie burst into laughter. "Mommy, Max is too smart for tricks." Chloe smiled, her heart full. Seeing Ellie so happy and carefree was a gift she never took for granted. One day, the family received a letter from the mayor's office. Max was to be honored at a community event celebrating acts of courage during the storm. The Millers were thrilled, especially Ellie, who insisted on making a medal for Max out of cardboard and glitter. On the day of the event, Max stood proudly beside Ellie as the mayor recounted his heroism. "Max showed us the true meaning of loyalty and bravery," the mayor said. "He reminded us all of the incredible bonds we share with our pets." The crowd erupted in applause, and Max wagged his tail, basking in the attention. Ellie hugged him tightly, whispering, "You're my hero, Max." Inspired by their experience, Chloe and Ben decided to dedicate more time to helping others. They began volunteering at the local animal shelter, sharing Max's story to encourage adoptions. During one visit, Chloe met a young boy who reminded her of Ellie when she first joined their family. Quiet, unsure, but full of potential, the boy was drawn to a small, timid dog in the corner of the shelter. "That one's shy," the shelter worker said. "Doesn't trust people easily." Chloe knelt beside the boy. "You know, our dog Max was like that once," she said gently. "But he turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to us." The boy's eyes lit up. "Really?" Chloe nodded. "Sometimes, all it takes is love and patience." On a crisp fall morning, the Millers took a family hike up a nearby trail. The golden leaves crunched under their boots as they walked, with Max trotting happily alongside them. Ellie held his leash, chatting animatedly about the birds and squirrels they passed. When they reached the top of the hill, the family paused to take in the view. The mountains stretched endlessly before them, bathed in the warm glow of the sun. "This is perfect," Chloe said, her voice filled with contentment. Ben nodded. "We're exactly where we're meant to be." Ellie knelt beside Max, wrapping her arms around him. "I love you, Max," she said softly. Max responded with a gentle lick to her cheek, his tail wagging. In that moment, it was clear the storm had brought them closer, and together, they had built a new life filled with love, hope, and unbreakable bonds. The story of Max and the Miller family is more than just a tale of survival. It's a heartfelt reminder of the profound connections between humans and animals. At its core, this story highlights the themes of loyalty, resilience, and the power of second chances. Through Max's heroism and the family's determination to rebuild, we see how love and trust can overcome even the greatest challenges. Max's actions throughout the story are a testament to the unwavering loyalty animals have toward their families. Despite his difficult past and the scars he carried, Max's instincts and devotion drove him to protect Ellie and the Millers at all costs. For many, Max represents more than just a dog. He embodies the ideals of courage and selflessness. His ability to sense danger and act decisively, even when the odds were against him, is a reminder of the incredible capabilities animals possess. Max's loyalty resonates with audiences who have experienced similar bonds with their pets. It sparks reflection on the mutual trust between humans and animals, inspiring others to appreciate the guardianship pets offer in return for love and care. Max's journey from a discarded rescue dog to a celebrated hero is a powerful narrative of redemption. Initially abandoned because of a perceived failure, Max found a new purpose with the Millers, a purpose that ultimately saved their lives. This element of the story carries an important message. Every being deserves a second chance. Whether it's a rescue dog like Max or a child like Ellie, the opportunity to be loved and to love in return can transform lives. Chloe's decision to adopt Max despite his mysterious past was a leap of faith that paid off in unimaginable ways. It challenges readers and viewers to consider how acts of kindness can create ripples of positivity, giving overlooked or misunderstood individuals and animals a chance to shine. The storm that nearly destroyed the Millers' home symbolizes the trials life throws at us, tested their strength, their unity, and their ability to persevere. Yet, through teamwork and Max's unwavering protection, they emerged stronger than ever. This resilience is a universal theme, reminding us that even in our darkest moments, we have the capacity to rebuild and move forward. The Miller's story inspires hope, showing that with love and determination, we can overcome seemingly insurmountable obstacles. Max's story isn't just about survival. It's about inspiring others to act, whether it's adopting a rescue animal, supporting a neighbor in need, or simply believing in the potential of others. The lessons from this tale can spark meaningful change. The Miller's journey encourages us to look beyond our immediate circumstances and recognize the power of community, trust, and the bonds that unite us with those we care about, human or otherwise. The Miller's journey with Max invites us to reflect deeply on the bonds we share with animals and the responsibilities that come with those connections. It challenges us to view animals not merely as pets but as family members with emotions, instincts, and a unique capacity to teach us about life and love. Max's actions throughout the story showcase a remarkable level of emotional intelligence. His ability to sense Ellie's vulnerability, detect danger in their home, and respond to crises with precision goes beyond what most people expect from animals. This raises an important question. How much do we truly understand about the emotional lives of animals? Studies have shown that dogs are capable of empathy, loyalty, and even a form of moral reasoning. Max exemplifies this, acting not out of training or obligation but from a deep-seated bond with his new family. For many readers and viewers, Max's story serves as a reminder of the intuitive and emotional depth of animals. It sparks a sense of awe and admiration, encouraging us to treat our pets with greater respect and to value their unique contributions to our lives. Max's transformation from a rescue dog to a family hero shines a light on the importance of adopting animals in need. His journey underscores the idea that rescue animals, despite their pasts, are capable of extraordinary things when given love and trust. This aspect of the story aligns with real-world advocacy for animal adoption. Many shelters are filled with animals like Max waiting for a chance to prove their worth and find their forever homes. Chloe's decision to adopt Max despite his unknown history sends a powerful message. Every animal has potential, and the act of giving them a second chance can lead to life-changing outcomes. This narrative resonates deeply with audiences, inspiring them to consider adoption and to see the value in overlooked or misunderstood animals. One of the most compelling aspects of Max's story is the debate it sparks about the nature of his heroism. Was Max's behavior driven purely by instinct, or was it a result of his past training as a rescue dog? Some might argue that Max's actions were rooted in his natural instincts to protect and care for his family. Others could point to his history of training, which likely honed his ability to detect danger and act decisively. Regardless of the perspective, one thing is clear: Max's story highlights the incredible synergy between nature and nurture. It shows how an animal's innate qualities, when paired with human guidance and love, can lead to extraordinary outcomes. The story of Max and the Millers isn't just a tale to admire, it's a call to action. It urges us to consider the roles animals play in our lives and to take steps to ensure their well-being. Whether it's adopting a rescue pet, supporting local shelters, or simply showing gratitude for the animals we already have, there are countless ways to honor the lessons Max teaches us. The story of Max and the Miller family leaves us with powerful takeaways about resilience, love, and the enduring bonds between humans and animals. It's a narrative that doesn't just inspire but also challenges us to reflect on our relationships, priorities, and the ways we can give back to those who rely on us, both people and pets. Both Max and Ellie entered the Miller family with emotional wounds. Max carried the weight of abandonment and guilt from his past, while Ellie, a foster child, struggled with feelings of insecurity and mistrust. Their journey of healing together is one of the most profound aspects of the story. Max's quiet vigilance and unwavering loyalty gave Ellie a sense of safety she had never known. In turn, Ellie's innocent love and unwavering trust gave Max a renewed purpose. Their relationship serves as a reminder of how healing can occur when trust is nurtured. For many families with pets, this dynamic is familiar. Animals have an uncanny ability to sense our emotions and offer comfort in ways words cannot. Max's story reinforces the idea that love, in its purest form, transcends species. The storm that nearly destroyed the Millers' home is symbolic of the unexpected challenges life throws our way. While the physical damage was devastating, the family's ability to rebuild demonstrates the strength of human resilience. Max played a critical role in this resilience, not just as a protector during the storm, but also as a unifying force that brought the family closer. His courage inspired Chloe and Ben to find strength they didn't know they had, while his presence gave Ellie a sense of stability during an uncertain time. This theme resonates universally. It reminds us that adversity, while painful, often reveals our capacity to adapt, rebuild, and grow stronger. The role of the community in the Millers' recovery is another important element of the story. Neighbors rallied to help rebuild their home, celebrate Max's heroism, and create a network of support. This collective effort underscores the importance of community in overcoming life's challenges. Max's story, shared widely through the community and local media, also sparked a ripple effect of kindness. People were inspired to adopt rescue animals, volunteer at shelters, and show greater appreciation for the animals in their lives. This aspect of the story serves as a reminder that heroism isn't limited to grand gestures. It can be found in everyday acts of generosity and care. As the Millers move forward, Max's story becomes a lasting legacy. It's not just a tale they'll share with others, but a reminder of the values they'll carry with them: love, loyalty, and the importance of second chances. For Ellie, Max is more than a pet. He's a symbol of the family she always dreamed of having. For Chloe and Ben, Max represents the power of trust and the profound impact of opening their hearts to those in need. Their journey encourages readers and viewers to reflect on their own lives, What relationships have shaped us? How can we extend kindness to others, both human and animal? And how can we create a legacy of love and resilience in our own families? Max's story is a powerful reminder that every act of kindness matters. Whether it's adopting a rescue pet, supporting a neighbor, or simply appreciating the love we receive, we all have the capacity to be heroes in our own way. As you reflect on this tale, consider how you can make a difference in your community. And if you've ever been inspired by an animal in your life, share your story. It might just inspire someone else to take action. 2.